Egyptians had mathematics, they had fractions, they calculated slopes by rise and run, but they probably didn't use the calculations that Mark has used in order to design this system of raising an obelisk. The Egyptians would have approached it more by experience.
And so the first thing to do is to actually apply some tension to the ropes pulling down here and to rotate it about.
Mark's method has a number of things going for it. It assumes that the obelisk was tipped, which is very likely. And then it also uses outriggers of a sort, like they used in their nautical technology, their boats and their ships. It places great reliance on the use of ropes to pull the obelisk down in a very controlled way. And we know that they would have done this in a very controlled way.
60 men are brought in to pull on the ropes attached to the giant wooden frame.
Nobody in front of here. Okay.
The time has come to test Mark Whitby's method and see how well he can control the obelisk.
No, behind here. Behind here.
Everyone is warned to stand back, just in case the 30-ton obelisk tilts too far and topples off the platform. With each tug, the giant stone teeters precariously.
Get the blocks in! Blocks in!
Rick Brown places wooden chocks beneath the rising obelisk.
I think maybe it'll be 2 to 3 pulls before, I believe, before it actually comes down onto this bearing. So I think we're doing quite well in that sense. It's not a bad system.
Mark's first goal is to tilt the obelisk down so that the pivot log makes secure contact with the top of the platform. This log is then supposed to rotate right up to the edge, guiding the obelisk precisely toward its pedestal, 12 feet below. But the jerky rocking of the obelisk creates a problem that Mark did not anticipate.
Hold, get the bearing in!
The giant log has slipped out of its intended position and is moving dangerously close to the edge.
We've come down on the bearing slightly in front of where we expected because the bearing slipped forward.
Yeah, we're about 2
As it rotates forward, it gets very, very close to that edge. Now, that's not necessarily a problem, as long as it doesn't come over the edge.
The rigging team struggles to pound the log back into place. Fearing that the human pullers may jerk the obelisk off the ledge, Mark decides to supplement the pull with a counterweight. A 3.5-ton block of stone.
Down! Pull! Come on! Quite a lot of stretch in it.
When its timber supports are removed, Mark hopes the weight of the stone will apply a steady downward pressure on the ropes, doing the work of 100 men. But as the stone is lowered to the ground, Mark finds that the ropes holding the counterweight have simply stretched.
Quite a lot of stretch in it.
And the obelisk hasn't moved an inch.
It's more stretch down here, Rick, than anything else.
In spite of all his plans and calculations, Mark's method is not working.
Very disappointed, but we're going to have to rebuild the whole lot.
Desperate to make some progress, Mark decides to take a modern shortcut, suspending the counterweight in midair with a crane. But this risky move just causes more problems. Mark's quickly changing plans are taking their toll on the rigging crew.
Are you with me, Gullah?
I'm slipping out of your grasp a bit, mate.
Well, what I'm saying is that the knot, we've got to make a knot that works, or we've got to find another way of doing it.
Well, the system I gave you before seemed to be working okay. Now you've changed it to what you wanted now.
No. What I'm saying is that distance is now, is bigger.
With morale plummeting, Mark Whitby must give up on the counterweight.
Well, it's a very frustrating day, and most of the day was taken up with the counterweight. which in fact was just a substitute for a workforce that we didn't feel we could handle. The machines haven't worked, so now we're just going to try the people that we had intended to try in the first place.
Yola.
Over 200 men are put on the ropes. Everyone senses this is Mark's last chance to make his method work.
Loosen those ropes! Loosen those ropes, Rick! Loosen the ropes! Keep those ropes loose! Hold! Hold! Hold!
Mark's old problem with the pivot log has returned to haunt him. Once again, the giant log has crept forward. And this time, it has gone too far.
What's happened is actually the log, as they pull, has walked forward. The design is on the basis that as it rotates, it actually comes to an edge. We're now so near the edge that as it rotates, it may come off the edge. And that's not nice.
The pivot log has slid right up to the edge of the ramp. And now the chances of the obelisk crashing down have become too great. Defeated, Mark is forced to admit the situation is too dangerous and decides to abandon the attempt.
Well, right now I feel gutted personally and for the whole team. We've got to this point where we realize that to go forward would not be a good idea and is possibly negligent in the sense that we're putting at risk people's lives.
I think we all made a critical mistake, not just Mark. We wondered what was the most complicated technology they had, and we said it was in boats. And then we said, well, how would they have applied that to a job like raising the obelisk? But in translating boat technology to the particular situation of the obelisk, we developed this monster. And I think that was the wrong way to go about it.
Hold! Hold! Hold!
Another obelisk raising attempt has ended in failure. Most of the team is completely demoralized. Timber framer Rick Brown is the exception.
We know it can be done. Just how far we want to go with attempts, and I think we can make it happen. I really think if we stayed here a week, we could raise this obelisk.
But unfortunately, Nova's time in Egypt has come to an end. Back at home, jobs and families beckon. The search for answers will have to continue somewhere else. 6,000 miles from Aswan, at a granite quarry in Massachusetts, a new plan is being hatched that may solve the obelisk puzzle once and for all.
See if it'll do it without it. No.
Rick Brown is the one member of the team who couldn't give up.
I'm a sculptor, and I live in the world of making things. I have a passion for making things. And the idea of walking away was just, I just couldn't imagine not solving this problem.
In Egypt, Rick was enthusiastic about Mark Whitby's plan. But now he decides to take another look at the sand pit.
Okay, check your alignment. Take those back there.
Rick liked the simplicity of Roger's method. But one thing worried him.
There it goes.
Roger used sand that was slightly damp. It didn't flow well and had to be dug out from directly under the obelisk. Potentially very dangerous.
He wanted to make sure this thing was going to go exactly the way he wanted.
Rick decides to use dry sand, abundant in Egypt's arid climate. With the help of his wife and fellow sculptor Laura, Rick begins planning a new kind of sandbox.
Okay. Wow, look at it go.
Okay,
This is great sand you got.
This is dry sand, that's important. The sand pit is set up so nobody ever has to go inside. It's perfectly safe.
Is that the main advantage between this method and doing it the way Roger did it, where he was inside the box digging?
Well, that way nobody's going to get hurt.
Oh, I didn't get hurt.
So it all depends on the flow. You use the flow instead of diggers.
With dry sand, the sand will flow.
And
With wet sand, we go home.
The main force at work in the sandpit is gravity. The obelisk sinks under its own weight. But how is it steered into the turning groove? Rick will try to control the stone with several brake ropes. In addition, the back wall of the box is a series of steps, carefully aligned with the turning groove. After perfecting his method with scale models, Rick is about to get his turn with a 36-foot obelisk.
Well, Roger, we have a ramp. We have a 25-ton obelisk sitting on top.
Maybe 30 tons?
Maybe 30 tons.
I doubt it.
We have a sandbox. The sandbox is filled to the top with sand. And if you come up here, you can see this opening. That's our portal. The sand will flow right out of the portal. Right now it's choked off. What we're going to do is we're going to take that out by hand with hose and pull all the sand out. And as we do that, the obelisk will rotate around and fall right into the center of the turning groove.
All the details of Rick's model have been scaled up for the 25-ton stone, including 3 gigantic ropes that run the length of the obelisk and are secured to 2 large brake logs.
1 inch, okay, so we pick it up from here.
Assisting Rick are friends from the Timber Framers Guild, a group dedicated to traditional building techniques. With everything in place, the team is ready to begin.
Okay,
You ready?
let's point this thing to the sky.
All right, we're getting movement over here.
There you go, there you go. Now you see this
They'll hold, we'll catch up.
Yeah, they're holding. Yeah, we should
Should get movement soon, they say.
fine. Yeah,
There it comes.
we're getting moving.
There you go.
At first, the movement of the obelisk is almost imperceptible.
There we go.
Whoa.
But slowly, the point of the stone begins to rise.
Whoa, there we go.
Ellen.
What we're doing here today feels very Egyptian to me. The ramp, the box looks very archaic. The colossal ropes, the big logs, the sand. It's big and it's massive, but it's using very simple forces. Simply the force of flowing sand.
Yeah,
They had no problems throwing thousands of people at the job. This is the approach the Egyptians would have taken.
The approach takes time. After half a day of digging, the obelisk has only rotated a third of the way toward the turning groove. As the hours pass and the obelisk sinks deeper into the pit, Rick's method is truly put to the test when more and more pressure falls on the brake ropes.
How much of the rope stretched so far?
well, the ropes have stretched around 7 to 8 inches.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and we're still well within the safety range.
Rick's team predicted a certain amount of stretch in the ropes,
So we shifted
but
forward.
if their estimates are wrong, the obelisk could overshoot the turning groove. Tension mounts as the stone approaches the critical angle of 75 degrees. With the obelisk nearing the back of the sandpit, Rick can't resist the temptation to jump in and dig for himself.
Okay.
Feel the pedestal yet?
Gauge pull.
72 degrees.
Gauge pull. Gauge pull.
The obelisk is now leaning against the wall of the sandpit and is directly in line with the turning
Looks like
groove.
a turning groove.
That's the turning groove. Right here. See the curvature.
Yeah, there it is.
You can see if I hold this tape as a straight edge,